What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about rolling the ball versus throwing the ball. What are the differences between the two? Why do you want to roll the ball? And what can you do to practice and get better at rolling the ball? Before we get into that, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We are on a quest to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we are ever so close. So if you could hit that subscribe button, that would go a long way for us. With that said, let's dive into today's lesson. So what is the difference between rolling the ball and throwing the ball? Most people, especially beginning bowlers, but also some bowlers that have been around for a little while, have a tendency to throw the ball more than they are rolling the ball. And what this is causing is it causes the ball to either hydroplane or spin, depending on how they're throwing it, versus getting into a roll, building up energy and driving through the pins. So it is more ideal if we can actually roll the ball. First, I want to talk about the differences between what throwing the ball and rolling the ball really looks like. For a lot of bowlers, if you're a newer bowler, you might have a weaker wrist position, and so what that causes is there's no way to get your fingers below the equator of the ball. So what ends up happening is whether your hand is behind the ball or whether your hand is beside the ball, you end up throwing the ball and it hydroplanes. The ball doesn't spin, it kind of does this. It might rotate just a tiny bit, but it's mostly just sliding down the lane. And what we actually want to accomplish is more of a rolling the ball and getting that ball rolling off of our hand. Now, some people who think that they might be rolling the ball and are actually getting a good hook, they're actually spinning the ball. So what they're doing is they're still not getting their hand under here and rolling it. What they're doing is their hand is coming over the top, or they're chicken winging it a little bit to get that ball to actually spin. And if the ball is spinning with a little bit of tilt, it will still go down and hook. And a lot of people are very successful in doing this, but you can elevate your game even more if you can get away from chicken winging it and spinning the ball and get into more of a roll. So for a lot of people, whether you're a new bowler or you're a more seasoned bowler, if I were to hand them a basketball or a soccer ball, some ball without any holes in it, I don't have one of those with me, so I am using a 7-pound ball for this demonstration. But if I hand them a ball and I were to say, let's go to the carpeted area and roll the ball to me, what they're going to do is they're going to get up here, and because there's no holes in the ball, they're going to palm the ball, and as they come back, their wrist is going to naturally be in a power or cupped position. They have to do that in order to hold on to the ball. If I were to release my wrist, the ball's just going to fall off of my hand. So naturally, this is what you do. Additionally, they're not going to have a big backswing. If they're going to roll the ball to me, they're just going to stop right here, and then they're going to roll the ball. And then what that ends up doing is as they come through and they roll the ball, naturally what they also end up doing is as they go to set the ball down, their wrist will collapse, letting the ball roll off their hand so that the ball rolls forward to me. That's what you see if I give somebody a basketball, soccer ball, something along those lines. They get that ball rolling nicely. As soon as we hand them a bowling ball with finger holes in it and they put their fingers in it, given the fact that the ball is heavier and that their objective is to try to launch the ball down the lane and crush the pins, they end up squeezing it and end up trying to use their body and actually throwing the ball and getting that hydroplane action going. So what we want to do is we're going to try to strip away that mindset of trying to hit the pins, focus more on rolling the ball on the lane. Some people who might not be as strong, they're maybe not launching it down there super hard, but in that weak wrist position, they're still doing that throw. What happens is if you're in a weaker wrist position, whether you're suitcasing it or behind the ball, because your fingers are not below the equator of the ball, even if you think you're just letting go with your thumb, it's not going to roll off your hand. The ball wants to go down because of gravity, so as soon as I let go in this weak position, it's also going to fall off of my fingers. This is what causes that ball to almost seem like you're going like this with your fingers, and there's very little rotation on the ball. That's why the ball hydroplanes. For those that are spinning the ball, if you're in a weak position and you turn your hand over, now all you're doing is you're getting the ball to spin more like a top, which also is not going to get the ball to hook. If you have a little stronger position, flat position, or let's say you're wearing a wrist brace or something to keep your hand in a flatter position, if you were to go and let go, your fingers are still not below the equator. They might be at the equator. It might roll a little bit, but it's not going to get into a fast roll. Even if you're in a flat position, even if you were to then chicken wing or turn your hand over, the ball's going to spin. It's going to roll off a little bit, so it is going to go down and hook. So there are a lot of bowlers that will spin the ball down and in, and be very successful, but when they try to translate that into a sport shot, they maybe are not nearly as good or it's not as effective. They're also a lot less consistent with that. We want to get that ball farther under, like you're doing when we are palming a basketball. Now with that said, these drills that we do, it's about stripping away the muscle memory that you have and establishing new muscle memory, and we do that with a series of steps. Step one is not about all of a sudden you look fantastic and you're throwing the ball beautifully. It's about getting used to this motion. So what I want you to think about is when we're palming that basketball, if we were to go back again, your hand is in more of a cupped or power position, and as they roll it, they're releasing their hand. If any of you have seen Karate Kid, you know that there's the paint the fence. And with the paint the fence is going up, bent wrist right here, that's a block motion, and then he comes down with a block motion. So his wrist is up, his wrist is down. Paint the fence, up, down. We want to do the same thing, but it's more like painting the floor. So we're going to go back and then forward. When we go back, we're going to go back, and when we get to the peak up here is where we're going to bring our wrist back. And as we're going to hold it there until our hand is about to cross our leg, and then we're going to flip it the other way, okay? And it can be forward. We don't have to worry about a turn yet. We're going to strip that out. Level one is just getting used to the wrist going from here to here, rolling the ball, uncoiling the wrist. So I would like you to start by not using a ball at all. Just have your hand free and go back, forward, back, forward. In slow motion, it's going to come back and get into this position, and then forward, hold, and then right there, we're going to uncoil that wrist. So go coiled, uncoiled, coiled, uncoiled. And I want you to get used to that feeling. Now, if you want to practice that feeling, you can use a basketball again and roll the basketball. So here I've got with me a 7-pound bowling ball. Your hand doesn't have to fit in it because I'm going to start just by palming it and get used to this, okay? I'm going to use my other hand to kind of catch it so I can feel it's in a power position, and then I'm releasing my wrist. Power position, releasing my wrist. If you're a two-hander, it's still the same thing. You're going to come back and then coming forward. You can then put your fingertips in the tip of the finger holes, but still keep your thumb out of it, and same thing, okay? You're going to come back and then forward and then uncoil, okay? That's what we're going for. Now you can actually translate this onto the lanes as well. So what you can do out on the lanes then, if you've got a light ball again, is we're going to put our fingers in the ball, but keeping our thumb out of the ball with the light ball. And when we go up there, you don't have to have a big backswing because you're going to end up doing this to keep your hand on the ball. We don't want that. Just keep it nice and short, just right here. This is all we want. But get that power position with your wrist when it comes back. And then as you come through, we're going to go forward. We're going to go here to here. And we want that ball to roll end over end. If you're two-handed, go ahead and go here. And same thing, you're not trying to hook the ball. So you're going to keep your hand straight, your arm straight the whole way. And then you're going to release your wrist, okay? We do not want the chicken wing. We do not want your hand to turn over. We're not twisting our body trying to make the ball hook. This is about getting the ball into a roll, and rolling forward end over end is fine. In a practice session, we don't care about score. I don't care if the ball goes in the gutter. I don't care if the ball hooks all the way off the lane, if I miss my mark. None of that matters. What I'm looking for is seeing that ball rolling in a forward motion. Using a one-step drill probably to start would be good. You can do no step, one step. You can take a few steps if you want to, whatever you're comfortable with. But the idea is to focus on that part of the release. And you should see the ball rolling forward. So as you come back, that ball is going end over end in a rolled position. Now, what is that compared to? I'm going to grab a regular ball, and for anybody wondering, I'm throwing an old Brunswick slingshot. I have a modified Sargista grip, and it's hard to demonstrate this with the funky grip. So this is a ball that was donated to our high school team. Happens to fit me fairly well, so it allows me to be able to do this for a demonstration. But this is what a typical more like suitcase throw or weaker wrist position throw would look like with the ball hydroplaning. This is what a lot of bowlers do. It had a little bit of forward roll, but it rolled like maybe 5 times before it hit the pin. So that's not really rolling, that's hydroplaning more with a little forward roll. We want that ball to really be rolling. And by practicing it with that light ball, without your thumb in it, you can really get that forward roll. That roll forward several more times. So that's what we're going for. If you struggle, I'm describing the other 10-pound ball, if you struggle with holding onto the ball and doing that one-handed, you can put your other hand on the ball, even if you're not a two-hander. If you're a two-hander, you're still gonna do that. But if you're not a two-hander, because we're keeping it right here, just nice and short and compact, getting your other hand there is not a problem. And I want you to just really focus again on that wrist is back here, and you're uncoiling at the bottom. So it's about uncoiling it right here. So even with your hand on the ball, two-handed, or if you need that assistance, it's going to be more. And what you should see is at the very bottom, my hand is uncoiling to get that ball rolling forward. This is obviously not our end game. This is not what we're going for, but it's getting you used to this and this. There's going to be a second part to this where now we want to do this with a little bit of a turn. Growing up, my friends and I, we would go out and practice all the time. We all worked at bowling alleys, and so when there was downtime, we would grab a ball off the rack, take our thumb out of it, when we get up there and be, doing the no thumb routine, and it was really helping us learn this motion. Now this was in the late 80s, early 90s, before two-handed was even really a popular thing, and we never really thought about having our second hand on it, but doing this really helped us learn that technique. Now, if you're not strong enough to be able to do that, again, you can use your other hand. Your other hand really just needs to be keeping the ball from falling or turning, just helps you hold on to the ball. The other hand is not doing the weight. One of the issues I see with two-handers is a lot of them actually have their wrist flat and their other hand is on the opposite side. So now they're trapping at either side of the ball and they're sweeping the ball and pushing the ball. And then what they end up doing to make the ball hook is their hand comes around. So they end up looking something like this. Which that was the ball spinning, and you can see it did hook a little bit, but that's the ball spinning. I see a lot of beginning two-handers doing that. You don't want that much weight in your left hand. That left hand is just there to hold the ball from falling off your hand, but you still want that hand under ball because you want your wrist in this position. So it's all about going here to uncoiled, here to uncoiled. So how do we do that with our thumb in the ball? We've had several videos where we've talked about the importance of having a nice snug fitting thumb. Now this is a decently snug fitting thumb. I could probably use a couple pieces of tape in here, but this fits well enough. And to get this motion, having a snug fitting thumb is super important because what we're not trying to do is curl the ball, okay? I don't want to do that. That puts so much strain on my wrist, that actually hurts to do that. So I don't want that, but if I am pulling back with my thumb, see the ball's not moving, the ball's staying there, my wrist is coming back, it's a little easier to do that. And as you're swinging the ball back, you want to actually be relaxed the whole way. And the reason we're waiting until we get to here is because when the ball hits the peak, this is the point of weightlessness. The ball actually doesn't weigh anything as it's hovering in the air, going from up, stopping in that instant before it comes back down. So in that moment, you are able to manipulate the ball. So in that moment, if I come back, see, I can come back. I'm not suggesting you do this, but I can come back when it gets up here, at that very peak, that's when I can bring my wrist in. Now it started to come back down again because I'm slowing it down because I'm not actually throwing the ball. But as I come back, I can do this. Now the idea is as you're going forward, you're not going to resist it and slow it down because if you do, it's going to want to fall back again. If you follow it, if you follow the pace of gravity and go, you can maintain this position and then let it collapse at the end. And when you collapse at the end, you are just going to uncoil your wrist and let go with your thumb, and your fingers are going to be more under the ball, and it's going to then roll off your fingers as your fingers come through. Now if we start with level 1 still, which is keeping it straight, going from painting the floor, going back and then forward, back and forward with the ball in our hand, our goal is to come back and go back and then forward as we go through. Don't do it in the air here, do it while you release the ball. So as you go through, if you can do this with the 1 step again, coming back here, and when you pop here and when I go to let go, I'm flinging my wrist forward like I'm using the base of my hand and punching something straight forward. So this is the motion that we want. Back, forward. Now, that had a little bit of tilt to it, which is why it hooked and didn't go perfectly end over end. I have been doing my normal release for so long, it's hard for me to keep my wrist completely straight, so I was a little bit turned, which is why you saw that rotation, but that ball was rolling more end over end. Some people even thumb the ball, they kind of push with their thumb. When you do that, you really see how that ball was hydroplaning down, kind of skidded backwards first and then forward. That's what some people do. We don't want that. That's, again, not rolling the ball. Compare that to spinning the ball now. And I'm not great at spinning the ball intentionally, but when we get thinking about chicken winging the ball or turning our hand over, if I chicken wing, now that ball does hook, but it was tilted so much like a top, there's no way for me to really control that really well. So that was chicken winging it. And then now I'll try to spin my wrist, okay? Twisting my wrist. And we're focused on that. Also very hard to control. That's more of a spinning motion. I didn't spin it quite as much of the top like I've seen other people do, but that's what they're getting. So we want to strip all that away. We want to get into this and letting it go. So if I try to roll it forward one more time, getting my wrist to go back, strong position, coiled, uncoiled at the bottom, straight through. Coiled, uncoiled. That ball is rolling. So you want to do that enough times to where you don't have to think about that anymore. You just do this and this is natural. You come back and you do that and you come through and this is how you throw it. If you have to think, if I got to think about doing this, I got to think about doing that, then you're not ready to move to step 2 yet. I've seen far too many people practice this for 30 minutes or less, and then they get up to take all their steps and everything they were just practicing is gone, because now they're thinking about their steps. What foot am I starting with? What am I aiming at? I'm focusing on an arrow, trying to hit that mark. And when they do that, they forget all about everything we just did with our wrist going coiled and uncoiled. So we want to get to the point to where we don't have to think about it anymore. This is just natural. If it's natural, if you can just get up there, grab your ball, I'm not going to get up there and think to myself, okay, I need to go back and then uncoil. Okay, coil, I'm not going to think about that. I'm just going to get up there and it does it naturally. Coiled, uncoiled. If that becomes a natural feeling, now you are ready for step 2, which is to get that the uncoil with a little bit of a turn. So this is all we're doing, going from here to here. That's it. Again, not twisting our hand over, not getting our elbow out, keeping your elbow in, still going coiled, and then uncoil with a turn. coil, uncoil with a turn. Now the rotation is better. We want to start here and just focus on our wrist because I don't want to bend elbow the whole way. You do this, you're going to lose it. It should be relaxed. Relax the elbow, relax the shoulder, relax the fingers. Everything should be pulling on the thumb if it's nice and snug. Pulling back so it's hanging off of your thumb right here. And as you come through, you're just going to let everything relax and then let go of the thumb. It's going to roll right off your hand. And if you can do that, that little bit of turn, you're going to get that rotation. You don't have to have a fingertip ball. This is a conventional grip ball. This does not fit me at all, so hopefully if you're throwing conventional, you've got one that fits you. But if you've got it, it's the exact same concept. If I do level 1, going back and then forward, uncoiling, coil, uncoil, you can hear it thumping over the thumb hole because I threw it dead straight flat over end over end. And if I want to do that little uncoil with a turn, coil, uncoil with a turn. Harder to see on that ball, but that ball has a little more side rotation and revolutions to go down and drive through. That's a 10-pound ball, and that drove through pretty nicely. So that shows you the advantage that we have of being able to throw that kind of motion on the ball. Now you can go even beyond these two levels when we really get into the intricacies of the yo-yo technique and focus on the elbow bend, focus on keeping everything in your wrist relaxed the whole way and getting the bend with the wrist and the elbow right about here, and then you're gonna hear and then come through, so it's a flick. So instead of going coil up here, uncoil down here, it becomes a coil uncoil. It's more like a whip. It's like a quick action. Takes a lot of work, takes a lot of practice. That's a much more advanced skill. So I wouldn't jump right into that. So if you're struggling with the yo-yo technique, it could be because you're trying to jump too far ahead. Let's scale that back a little bit. Let's focus on getting coil, uncoil, coil, uncoil. And again, it's vitally important that you've got a snug fitting thumb because we do not want this and you're squeezing the ball, you're going to end up straining your wrist and your forearm because we don't need this. You don't need to have this the whole way, but you need to have it coiled at least by here so that you can do the uncoil just like we were doing with the basketball. You're here and you're uncoiling it when you roll the basketball. So we want to be coiled at this position so that we can uncoil. And it's easiest to practice doing it here first and then let it and keeping it there and then doing that. If you have a hard time getting up here, keep your swing low, okay? Just do it right here, boom, boom, that's it. Back, forward, back, forward. That's it, that's all you need to do. If you don't throw the ball very hard, that's okay. You can keep it nice and short. Coil, uncoil. Got that ball rolling end over end. You can practice that, and then you can do the turn. Just a little bit back here, coil with a turn. Back here, coil with a turn. Keeping it short, okay? Nice and short swing. Coil and coil with a turn. Now you can see that ball rotating correctly and it's rolling. Once you've got all that down, you can start to bring your steps into play, but you need to have that feel natural, like you don't have to try it anymore. You practice no step or one step at the line. You need to do this probably hundreds of times to get so used to feeling that you don't have to think about it anymore. Then you can bring your steps in, then you can bring your targeting in. You should record yourself because if you can see yourself doing this nicely at the line and then you bring your steps in and suddenly this is gone again, then that means you weren't ready to progress yet and you need to step back, go back to the line, go back to doing this again. And if you're struggling bringing all your steps in, go back to our prior video about timing and bring them in one step at a time. And you can bring that coiled to uncoiled into play with those steps. But you need to get this feeling down first to where you don't have to think about it anymore. This is natural to you, you're ready to progress into then aiming at a mark. It is vitally important that you don't worry about where the ball goes. I don't care if I throw the ball in the gutter every single time. I don't care if I miss my mark and pull it every time. Practice is not about the scoreboard. Practice is about what is the ball doing? What is my wrist doing? What is it that I'm working on, and am I successfully able to do that? And if you can get that down, then you bring in targeting and steps and other things to then improve your scores drastically. So Hope this helps. Hit that subscribe button if you could. Help us get to 5,000, and we will see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.